Michael, the covenants are crystal clear. That monstrosity in your driveway is not allowed.
Karen, it's a temporary ramp for my mom. She just had knee
Temporary
surgery.
or not, Section 5, subsection C, right here, prohibits any unapproved structures. You signed it.
I left you a message. I was waiting on the board
They
for the
say
answer.
you should never mess with a veteran service dog. Karen, our HOA president, learned that lesson the expensive way, to the tune of $25,000. She thought calling animal control on Max, my PTSD service dog, would get me kicked out of the neighborhood. Instead, her ignorance about federal disability laws became the most costly mistake of her life. What she didn't know was that every harassment, every threat, every violation was building a case that would bring her entire world crashing down. I'm Robert, a 62-year-old Marine Corps veteran. After 23 years of service and 2 tours that left invisible scars, I retired to a quiet HOA community in suburban Arizona. Max, my golden retriever, isn't just a pet, he's a certified service dog trained to help with my PTSD. When I wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, Max is there. When crowded spaces make my chest tighten, Max grounds me. The neighborhood seemed perfect at first. Tree-lined streets, friendly waves, well-kept homes. I'd submitted all of Max's certification paperwork to the HOA before moving in, just to be transparent. The management company filed it without issue. Then Karen became HOA president. Karen was that neighbor, the one who measured grass height with a ruler and took photos of trash cans left out 10 minutes too long. She was 60-something, always dressed like she was attending a country club meeting, and treated the HOA presidency like a Fortune 500 CEO position. Within her first month, violation notices tripled across the neighborhood. I first met her on a Saturday morning while Max and I were checking the mail. "That's a rather large dog," she said, eyeing Max with obvious disapproval. "He's my service dog," I replied politely. "All his paperwork is on file with the HOA." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "We have breed restrictions in this community. I'll need to review that." Something in her tone made my stomach sink. Max sat calmly beside me, doing exactly what he was trained to do, and I could already see this wasn't going to be simple. I had no idea that simple encounter would lead to 6 months of hell, and eventually, the most satisfying legal victory of my life. 2 weeks later, the first letter arrived. A formal HOA violation notice claiming Max exceeded the weight limit for pets in our community. I called the management company immediately. "Mr. Harris, service dogs are exempt from pet restrictions under federal law," the property manager explained. "I'll inform the board." I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Karen started showing up. She'd happened to walk by when Max and I were in the yard, taking photos on her phone. She sent letters demanding I provide proof of disability, which is illegal to request under the ADA. She claimed neighbors were complaining about barking, though Max barely made a sound, and 3 neighbors quickly told me they'd never complained about anything. She came to my door asking if your dog bothered me, my neighbor Tom, a retired electrician, said one afternoon. I told her Max is quieter than her yappy little terrier. The board meetings became hostile. Karen would bring up the dog issue every single month, despite the management company repeatedly citing federal law. She proposed new rules clearly designed to target Max. Emotional support animals must be under 30 pounds, all animals must be crated when outside, absurd restrictions that violated the Fair Housing Act. For months in, she sent a letter demanding Max wear a muzzle in common areas because he was intimidating. My hands trembled reading that. Max, who'd helped countless veterans through therapy visits, who'd never shown aggression to anyone, labeled as dangerous. I tried reasoning with her one last time in the community parking lot. "Karen, Max is protected under federal law." "I'm happy to explain. I don't care what you think the law says," she interrupted, her face flushed. "I'm president of this HOA, and I decide what's acceptable here." The stress was destroying me. I started having more nightmares. My blood pressure spiked. My daughter noticed I was withdrawing again, the same way I had before Max came into my life. The very thing meant to help my PTSD was becoming a source of trauma because of one person's ignorance and power trip. My lowest point came when I actually researched selling my home, the place I'd planned to spend my retirement, just to escape the constant harassment. Then Karen made her final, catastrophic mistake. It was a Tuesday morning when animal control knocked on my door. "We received a report of an aggressive dog at this address," the officer said, looking uncomfortable. My heart stopped. "Who reported this?" He showed me the complaint form. Karen's name, signature, and a detailed description claiming Max had lunged at children and shown aggressive behavior toward neighbors. Every word was a lie. The officer, thankfully, was professional and knowledgeable. He immediately recognized Max's service dog vest and certification tags. "Sir, I'm required to follow up on all reports, but I can see this is clearly a service animal," he said quietly. "Between you and me, we've had multiple calls from this same complainant about various neighbors. I'll file this as unfounded." After he left, I sat on my couch, Max's head in my lap, and something inside me shifted. The anxiety turned to cold clarity. This wasn't about HOA rules anymore. Karen had filed a false report with a government agency to harass a disabled veteran service dog. She'd used her position to try to have Max removed, possibly impounded, knowing full well what he meant to my health and safety. That crossed a line from which there was no return. I wasn't going to run anymore. I was going to fight back. The next morning, I called my daughter, Jessica, who's a paralegal in Phoenix. "Dad, what she's doing isn't just wrong, it's illegal," she said after I explained everything. "The Fair Housing Act and ADA protect you. You have grounds for a lawsuit." She connected me with her firm's disability rights attorney, Michael Chen. During our first consultation, I watched his expression darken as I showed him the pile of letters, emails, and documented incidents I'd been keeping. "Mr. Harris, this is one of the clearer cases of disability discrimination and Fair Housing Act violation I've seen," Michael said. "Harassing a disabled person about their service animal, demanding proof of disability, filing false reports with animal control, each of these is actionable." We built our case methodically. I gathered all HOA correspondence about Max's service dog certification and training records, my medical documentation confirming PTSD diagnosis, the animal control report and officer's notes, statements from 3 neighbors willing to testify that Max had never been aggressive and that Karen had solicited complaints, email evidence showing the management company had repeatedly informed Karen about federal law, records of the board meetings where she targeted Max despite legal warnings. Michael drafted a demand letter, giving Karen and the HOA 30 days to respond. We asked for $25,000 in damages for emotional distress, harassment, and violation of federal disability laws, plus a guarantee that the harassment would stop. "Will she actually pay?" I asked. "If she's smart, she'll settle," Michael replied. "If this goes to court, she could face much higher damages, plus our legal fees. The evidence is overwhelming." Part of me felt guilty, until I remembered the sleepless nights, the stress-induced health problems, the fact that she'd tried to take away the one thing helping me live a normal life. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. We sent the letter on a Friday. Now we waited. Karen's response came not through her attorney, but in person, a catastrophic mistake. She appeared at my door 3 days after receiving the demand letter, her face red with indignation. "You're suing me? After you've been violating HOA rules for months?" I kept my voice steady. "Karen, my attorney has advised me not to discuss this directly with you. Please have your lawyer contact mine. This is ridiculous. I'm just trying to maintain property values. By violating federal disability law, I couldn't help myself. By filing false police reports. That dog is not a real service dog. You just want special treatment." My neighbor Tom had his phone out, recording from his doorway. She didn't notice. "Karen, you need to leave my property." Instead, she doubled down. In front of Tom's camera, she went on a 5-minute tirade about how people fake service dogs all the time, how she had every right to question my disability, how she was protecting the neighborhood. Every word was gold for our case. When Michael heard the recording, he actually smiled. She just buried herself. Send me that video. The HOA's insurance company got involved next. After reviewing the case, they did exactly what Michael predicted, pressured Karen to settle immediately. Fighting would cost them far more in legal fees and potential damages. The settlement conference lasted 2 hours. Karen sat across the table, her attorney looking exhausted beside her. The insurance adjuster laid it out clearly: settle for $25,000, or face a court case they'd certainly lose, with damages potentially exceeding $75,000. I watched her face cycle through denial, anger, and finally defeated acceptance. The check was cut within a week. $25,000. But the money wasn't even the best part. The settlement terms also required Karen to resign from the HOA board immediately, issue a written apology, and complete 8 hours of Fair Housing Act training. The HOA's insurance premiums increased due to her actions, which the board made sure every homeowner knew was her fault. Karen resigned the day after the settlement was finalized. The apology letter she sent was clearly written by her attorney, but seeing it in writing still felt validating. The new HOA president, Maria, called me personally. "We're so sorry for what you went through. We've implemented mandatory fair housing training for all board members." Tom told me that Karen's husband was not pleased about the $25,000. Apparently their insurance didn't cover the full amount, leaving them on the hook for $10,000 out of pocket. She stopped attending community events. The few times I saw her, she looked the other way. But the real victory was simpler than any of that. Max and I take our morning walks in peace now. No more photos, no more letters, no more surprise visits. My blood pressure is back to normal. The nightmares decreased again. I used some of the settlement money to donate to a service dog training organization in Max's honor. The rest went to my grandchildren's college fund, a good thing coming from a bad situation. The neighborhood is quieter now, friendlier. Several neighbors told me they were glad someone finally stood up to Karen's overreach. The HOA actually functions better, focusing on genuine community issues rather than power trips. Sometimes standing up to a bully doesn't just help you, it helps everyone. Looking back, I'm grateful for how it turned out, though I wish none of it had been necessary. Max is snoring beside me as I share this story, completely unaware he was at the center of a legal battle. All he knows is that he's loved and safe, which is exactly how it should be. What I learned is that federal disability laws exist for a reason. Service dogs aren't pets, they're medical equipment with fur and a heartbeat. Harassing someone over their service animal isn't just cruel, it's illegal, and there are real consequences. If you've enjoyed this story of justice served, I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe to hear more tales of people who stood up for what's right. Sometimes the best revenge is simply holding people accountable for their actions. And giving your service dog an extra treat.